Today, in current events from a Christian perspective, the Supreme Court Justice really does not like the fact that the First Amendment allows free speech, which is wild, but we'll talk about that story. Meanwhile, a police department in California is now replacing mugshots with Lego heads. And no, that is not a joke. I'm going to show you the picture that an actual police department posted with people and Lego heads. In good news, on the other side, California City Huntington Beach bans pride flags, and this is great. And then in Hollywood news, we'll end up with actor, comedian, and podcaster Russell Brand, who now apparently loves Jesus, which again, is great news. All this and more today. I'm Matt Odegaard, and this is Church Public. Welcome back to Church Public. Again, I'm your host, Matt Odegaard. I really appreciate you stopping by. And if you like this, you can actually like this. Hit that button. And if you want to hit the subscribe button, I love that too. If you want other people to know about this, you can give a 5-star review. That's the best way to let other people know that you liked this. And if you want to just hit that share button, you can send it to somebody else. Of course, you can also go to support Church Public at churchpublic.com/support. If you're an audio listener and you want to see the video, you can also go to YouTube, and I'll probably be on YouTube unless they decide for once and for all that they don't want me to be on YouTube. We'll have to see what happens. Anyway, this is current events from a Christian perspective to help you live out your faith. We bring you news reports so that you can know in this wild and wacky world that we're in how to live your faith in all sorts of situations. So that's what we'll do here today. And we'll begin with the story I started with, and that is the Murrieta, California Police Department is now choosing mugshots of Lego heads. Here it is. If you're just listening, I will describe for you. I mean, man, if you're just listening and you want to see a video, this might be the one, because I am showing you a picture of a post from the actual Murrieta Police Department of California with Lego heads on their faces. You know, this sounds like a joke I would make, but it's not a joke. This is actually happening in the police department. On January 1st, a new law went into effect that restricts how and when law enforcement can share suspect photos. The new law, Assembly Bill 994, Penal Code 13665, prohibits law enforcement from sharing suspect photos for nonviolent crimes unless special circumstances exist. So this new law requires agency to remove suspect mugshots after 14 days. The police department, this is their post. They said, the Murrieta Police Department prides itself in its transparency with the community, but also honors everyone's rights and protections as afforded by law, even suspects. I'm going to put this up one more time. And we chose to cover their faces with Lego heads. Again, if you're just listening, it's literally a picture of, you know, the lineup where you see the suspects lined on the wall with the inches and the feet behind them to show how tall or short they are. And instead of their faces, you're seeing, I can't even, instead of their faces, you're seeing these Lego heads. I mean, one of them has a beard. One of them has like glasses. This is our world. One, we are just not a serious country anymore. And two, transparency. They said they're doing this for transparency, and their way to do transparency is to put Lego heads over actual faces. This is how we go. All right. Speaking of transparency, one of our Supreme Court justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson, wants to take away your right to say what you want to say, which is protected by the First Amendment, by the way, because it might get in the way of the government's plans or something like that. Justice Jackson says the First Amendment really, and this is a quote, hamstrings the government, end quote, when it wants to censor speech. And I would respond, yes, it does. I don't know if you can see in the shot that I'm in right now, but behind me is a book on constitutional amendments, laws, the process of how the Constitution became the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all that kind of thing. I've read through a lot of this, and actually, whether you know it or not, the First Amendment is literally supposed to protect you from the government and speech. Like, that is actually its job. Like, the founders really were concerned that the government would suppress speech and religion and, weapons, Second Amendment, all of these things, which is why they put them into the Bill of Rights. And yet, this is what a Supreme Court justice says. Let's hear it from herself.
Justice Jackson?
So my biggest concern is that your view
has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways in the most important time periods? I mean, what would you have the government do? I've heard you say a couple times that the government can post its own speech, but in my hypothetical, kids, this is not safe, don't do it, is not going to get it done. And so I guess some might say that the government actually has a duty to take steps to protect the citizens of this country, and you seem to be suggesting that that duty cannot manifest itself in the government encouraging or even pressuring platforms to take down harmful information. So can you help me? Because I'm really worried about that, because you've got the First Amendment operating in an environment of threatening circumstances from the government's perspective, and you're saying that the government can't interact with the source of those problems.
Yes, correct. 100%, again, correct. The whole point of the First Amendment, Supreme Court Justice Jackson, is so that the government cannot say to me what I can and can't say and censor me when you don't like what I have to say. Because that was the whole problem was, people would disappear, they would go to jail, they would get dead because they said things against the government. And so the founders said, hey, that's not great. If you are frustrated with what the government is doing, maybe you should be able to say that without fear of, death or at the least punishment. And that's the opposite of what we're hearing from this elected Supreme Court justice. Seems like a problem. And okay, let's say you go along with this. So you're saying the government gets to decide what harmful information is. Well, again, then who gets to decide what harmful information is? Do you get to decide what harmful information is? Does the government get to decide what harmful information is? This seems like another problem, especially when this same government, in fact, this very same justice, I don't have the clip pulled up, but when asked, what is a woman? This particular justice said, I don't know. I can't define what a woman is, but this person thinks they can define what harmful information is, just not what a woman is. This seems like a problem to me. What do you think? So if you, the government, get to decide it, or perhaps go with me, the Bible gets to decide what harmful information is, maybe we should see what is actually true and go with that. But, I'm probably a crazy person in thinking that. So just as a refresher, in case you don't know or forgot, this is what the First Amendment actually says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So there it is right in there. Abridging the freedom of speech. Congress specifically is not allowed to do that by the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. So if the government can stop what you say, why not stop who you're allowed to pray to or who you're allowed to meet or any type of protest against the government at all? Like literally, you just heard that's what the First Amendment is all about. And for context, if you didn't know where this was coming from, this is in an argument session, Murphy versus Missouri, a case brought by the states of Louisiana and Missouri and 7 individuals against the Surgeon General Vivek Murthy and other members of the Biden administration. The plaintiffs allege the administration violated the First Amendment by illegally coercing social media companies to suppress posts and news stories expressing views unfavorable to federal officials on issues like COVID-19, Hunter Biden, election integrity, and other things, quote, under the guise of combating misinformation, end quote. And I can say for certain, I've been affected by this. I've had posts taken down on things like that, where the only reason it was taken down is the powers that be or somebody else said I peddled misinformation. So do I have the right to say what I want to say? Or if the administration says they don't like what I have to say or anyone has to say, can they just take it down? Can they take you down? Can they get rid of you? Apparently, this Supreme Court justice says, yes, sure. The First Amendment is just a barrier. It hamstrings the things the government needs to do. The government should be able to just tell you what you should say or tell you what you can't say. What you need to understand is this is not a mistake. And I've heard a lot of commentary on this, but I felt like I needed to weigh in and give this Christian perspective as well, because this group of people really believes what this justice is saying. She could come out and say, "Oh, I didn't say the right thing," but they really do believe this. They just don't usually say it out loud. And here is another example. I played this the other day, but I think it's good enough to play again. This is a video of a Politico host on MSNBC talking about where rights come from, specifically like the rights that you have in the Bill of Rights or the Constitution or whatever. Let's listen to this.
The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalists is very different, is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God.
Again, usually they just haven't been saying this out loud, but now for some reason they're saying these things out loud. They think your rights are just arbitrarily put on paper by some dead old white guy. Oh, and by the way, the fact that these people are dead old white guys is really important to this group, because then they can just say the founders were wrong or racist or whatever, and the First Amendment and Second and all of them really are just suggestions and probably just wrong. This goes back to the foundation of the government. The social fabric that was in place during the founding was one of Christian morality. People argue about this and say, well, the founders weren't Christian, whatever. It doesn't matter whether individual founders were Christian. The fact is the fabric of society around the founding of the United States of America was a Christian society. It just was. And every historical evidence points to this. So they didn't have to say explicitly that this only works if you trust God, though, in fact, many of the founders did. They said that it's a moral government if you can keep it, or it's only working based on the foundation of a moral government. Many of the founders said something to that effect. And they knew that the reason these laws can work, the reason these amendments, the Constitution, the Declaration can work, is only because if you believe in God and the foundation of truth in God, then you can self-govern yourself in this way, and this society works. Now that, and I mean, they wrote it on your money. If you don't believe me, just take a piece of money out of your pocket, a coin or a bill, in God we trust. Yeah, it's on there. It's printed on the money in your pocket right now. But now that no one trusts God, and no one in power especially trusts God, it doesn't matter if the Constitution or the Declaration or the Bill of Rights say certain things. If these documents now get in the way of government, then the documents have to go. And, this just reminds me of Jack Sparrow. It's not that they're laws per se. They're pretty much just guidelines.
The code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
Right. Because this is who they are. They don't believe in the documents. They don't believe in Christianity. They don't believe in the founders. They just think those are all racist, terrible people, old white guys, and now dead old white guys. That's why they're taking down all the memorials of all of the people that they don't like anymore. And all of the writings that these people wrote, they're also getting rid of because they just get in the way. See what's going on here? They've shown you who they really are. So now what? And the answer is, if they don't follow Christ and don't respect the founding documents, what do we do? The answer, and it is not going to be very satisfying, is that we need to pray just as the founders prayed over most of their sessions, and we need to preach Christ crucified, because through Christ, that's the only way that we're going to get back to a moral civilization and a government that really respects the rule of law. So we need to pray and preach Christ crucified. He is, in fact, our only hope. Speaking of hope, or unfortunately, an Episcopal priest who went on Jeopardy just doesn't seem to know the Bible, which to me is quite a problem. So this is kind of a silly story, but as I saw this clip go around, it really made me think. And so the backstory here is that on Jeopardy, and I bring up Jeopardy a bunch. I feel like, I don't know, I just like Jeopardy, but this particular Episcopal priest, he lost the Jeopardy tournament. But the question that he lost on, I think, is the important point that we need to point to, because we're looking at current events from a Christian perspective. And this, to me, really illustrates a problem that I continue to see all over America, and especially in evangelicalism, in the place where the church should have authority, in the place where pastors should know what they're doing, and especially know Bible things. I mean, isn't it important that, I know if you're listening, you can't see that I'm touching the Bible that is open next to me, and it's open all the time next to me, even when I'm not doing this podcast, because I read it as much as I can. And I know that sounds maybe ridiculous to you, but man, I just feel like I need it all the time. So when someone like this on Jeopardy gets a Bible question and doesn't know the answer to a Bible question, I get worried. The backstory here is that Reverend David Sibley was on Jeopardy, and his quest to win Jeopardy ended when he was on March 8th. He lost in the semifinal round and did not advance to the Tournament of Champions. Apparently, he had been on before as well, but we'll just talk about this particular one. So the final Jeopardy category was New Testament. So again, you probably can't see, but my Bible actually happens to be up into the New Testament because it's open to, what are we on? Romans 8. I was reading Romans 8 earlier and doing a Bible study on that. Anyway, so it seems like this would give this priest, who is a worker for God, a worker in the church, you'd think this would be just a phone in, like he should have been able to get it. So anyway, this question was, here's the question. This city, now in Turkey, is the addressee of one of the New Testament epistles and the setting for the comedy of errors. So that is the Jeopardy answer. Remember, they give the answers and then you answer in the form of a question. Anyway, so his guess was Corinth. And again, listen, I don't know everything. Like, please hear me and understand. But as soon as I heard that, I thought, that is wrong. It is Ephesus. And I just happen to know that it's Ephesus. I also happen to really like Shakespeare. You probably can't see on the other side of me are a bunch of Shakespeare plays because he's one of the greatest writers of all time. And so he's worth studying. At least I think so. And so I may be reaching here, but my first thought was, this is what is wrong with our modern church. We just literally don't know our Bible. Sure, some days, maybe long ago, maybe not so long ago, I would watch Jeopardy and think, I think I could do pretty well on Jeopardy. And again, I am probably fooling myself and would have just gotten totally destroyed and not been anywhere. So, you know, especially on the sports questions, for those that know me, if you know, you know. Anyway, a priest who doesn't know the cities of the Bible, the cities that Paul visited, that John visited. I mean, this is kind of important things in the Bible, and the most famous cities of the Bible, and he just doesn't know, or maybe he doesn't know Shakespeare, and I guess that's permissible, but still, like, not knowing Bible cities, it seems like kind of a big deal. But I think this points to a bigger problem, and it's a problem that I see over and over again in churches, seminaries, etc., and that is that people just don't read the Bible. I know regular people don't read the Bible, and again, I'm not better than anybody else. All I am is I have a Bible and I have it open so it's not dusty on my shelf, and I try to read it every day. I really do, because I know I need it in my life. I need God in my life. I need him to give me strength, like all the time, like so much. I was inspired. This was several years ago now, but I was reading about Martin Luther and discovered that when he was in a certain position and then given another position, which took more time, he actually then took more time to pray. So he had been praying, I can't remember the story off the top of my head. I think he was praying 1 or 2 hours, and then he moved it up to like 2 or 3 hours a day. He was praying. That's a lot of prayer, by the way. I'm nowhere near that. And he was asked about it. Again, this is my paraphrase. And essentially he said, I'm too busy not to pray. When I have a really busy day, I know that I need to pray more. But how many of us approach God like that? When we know we have a busy or stressful day, we get up early and we prepare in other ways, but do we turn to God and say, like, hey, God, I need more of you today because I have more to do, so I'm going to pray more. I'm going to read more. Most of us don't live that way. Most of us don't do that, but that is really what we need to do more of. So when I see a priest who doesn't know basic things about the Bible, I get concerned. If he doesn't know that, what is he teaching people? And I'm not picking on this one particular person per se. I'm just saying I see this a lot. I talk to a lot of pastors in various conversations, and many of them don't know basic things about the Bible. How are you functioning? I mean, it's a seminary like most pastors, and I know that in seminary I learned certain things. I didn't learn other things. I've been studying on my own since then, and trying to grow in my own knowledge of God so that I can express the best way that I know how to people how to follow after God. That's why I do this channel as well. Again, I'm not better than anybody else. I just know that I need God more than anybody else. I need him. I'm the worst of sinners. So I need God more and more and more. And these types of situations make me a little bit concerned. All right, let's keep going. In other news, and this time we got to get to good news because I know I give a lot of bad news. So I specifically said, all right, I got to talk about good news. I got a couple of good news stories here. The first is that California City Huntington Beach bans pride flags. This is a fantastic story. And I know a lot of people are upset about this, but I think this is a really good story. California voters in the conservative city of Huntington Beach voted in favor of a measure restricting most flags on public property. And of course, it sparked activists from the LGBTQAAIP hashtag ++ squiggly emoji $sign. The measure the Orange County town passed last week, 58% to 42%, will only allow U.S. flag, California flag, county, city flag, POW, MIA flag, and some armed forces flags. I think this is great, and more cities need to do this. I think, one of the reasons that I brought this story up is that this is a California city. And if one California city can do it, others will. Now, will they? Yeah, probably not, because they really like their flags. But I guess we got to just real quick, again, talk about flags. I've talked about this a bunch of times. You may or may not have heard episodes on that. So I'll give a really quick summary again, because it's important to understand why I talk about flags and why it's important. Flags are important. And you may think, that's just a flag, nobody cares. No, it is important because it's a symbol. We have to talk about the difference too between a pride flag and the American flag. Banners and flags are symbols. They're identifiers. They're used for three main purposes in history: to identify a group, to claim possession of a space or a territory or something like that, a region, or to lend festivity to a celebration. Banners are rallying points. They're physical banners. They're spiritual banners. And we pledge allegiance to a flag because the flag is a symbol of that which you pledge. The flag is a symbol of America, and you pledge to America that you trust America, that you will live in America and honor the ways of America. Now, most people don't do that anymore, and they don't stand for the national anthem, and they don't do the Pledge of Allegiance because they don't stand for the country that they're in. But that is really a ludicrous place to be, because if you live in a place, why don't you honor the place that you live? And if you don't like the place that you live, why would you live in the place that you don't like? None of this makes any logical sense, but of course, that's the way that progressivism works. It says that you need to change everything about the place that you're in to get to some paradise or utopia that, spoiler alert, doesn't actually exist. But anyway, we're talking about flags. The flag is a symbol of something. The symbol represents your belief in the larger thing. The American flag represents the larger belief in America, for instance. And this totally makes sense in terms of a country. You love your country. You should stand behind the values of your country, or you replace your country's flag with another flag. And that's what's been going on here. The American flag obviously represents the nation of the United States. The pride flag represents something different. It is not a national idea like the American flag represents a country. It's a place. It's a place in time. The pride flag, however, represents this global idea that humanity as a whole needs to conform to this idea that your sexuality is fluid, or you can choose whatever you want, or you're born this way, depending on which side of the LGBTQAIP hashtag ++ squiggly emoji $sign, or it religiously promotes this ideal. And people get a little itchy when I say this is a religious symbol, but it is. The pride flag is a religious symbol, and you see it in the way that people respond to it. You must conform to the religious ideals. You see it in the backlash to this Huntington Beach story, because the people that are upset about this are really, really upset about this, and they're protesting about this because the flag means something. It's not just a silly flag or a symbol. It means the very heart of what they believe. But, for instance, burning an American flag or not standing for the national anthem, those are praised as morally good actions. That's how you know this is a religious thing, that you can destroy certain symbols and feel really morally great about it, and you can revere other symbols and feel either morally great about it, or when people trash your symbol, you get religiously, righteously angry about it. That's how you know we're dealing with some kind of religious action. It's not just a regular action, because otherwise you would just be like, oh, I can't believe they did that, and move on with your day. That's not how people respond to this at all. So you know it is something more than that. It's something emotional. It's something guttural. It's something in your heart, which means it is a religious thing. So it's great that the city of Huntington Beach has said these flags cannot be flown. I hope it sticks, and I hope that more cities will follow after this. Finally, we're going to look at one more thing, and that is in the good actions, and we're going to look at actor, podcast host, comedian, and apparently he's now seeking after Jesus. This is Russell Brand. I'm just going to let you listen to what he has to say, and we'll talk a little bit about it.
I've been going to a church where they do alpha courses. I guess that's
Just going to pause for a second and say if you're just listening, he's an interesting dude. So we could say that for sure. And he's holding a rose and he's pulling the petals off a rose. And if you don't know, that means it's one, he loves me, one, he loves me not. You're like pulling roses off or petals off a rose to choose things. So apparently his symbolism here is that he's pulling petals off a rose to decide what church to go to, which is ridiculous. But let's get to this and let's have an open mind to what he has to say. And the fact that he is even thinking about church, I would say, is a good sign. And I probably interrupted him here, but he's saying he went to Alpha, which is a ministry that is for newer believers and tells you about certain matters of theology and biblical ideas. So here we go.
of Church of England. I've been to a Catholic church and I'm considering going to a Eastern Orthodox church. Do you think the different denominations and distinctions are important when you look at God and the figure of Christ from as best as one might claim a universal perspective, if you feel that you can be universal on a subject like kindness or service or surrender or gratitude or overcoming the self or understanding that what you're experiencing in the moment, even if it is suffering, is God's will? I know that there are numerous distinctions, ecclesiastical and ontological, but I feel that at the moment I'm moving towards a kind of moment of baptism. I mean, are you baptized? Did you get baptized as an adult? Like, would you do it in a river? Would you do it in a font? Do you want to get fully under that? Because me, I want River Jordan or River Thames at worst. I want proper plunging and... Tell me, what is the importance of the church? And tell me, is it important what church you go to? Because I'm just learning, man. I'm just learning. And you know, if I don't get clear guidance, I'll have to make a decision just sort of based on what petal I'm on. So Orthodox, Catholic, Anglican, Presbyterian, Methodist, Pentecostal, you know. Let me know what you're into. In the holy name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, amen.
I mean, listen, I know he's still a little bit lost and you can hear it because he's kind of going about the whole thing backwards. And yet, it's so important. Like, I love this, and don't miss this. He's searching, and he is trying to figure out what's the right church to go to. He's trying to figure out why. Why would you choose a certain church? And he throws out big words like ecclesiastical, which just means different church things, or ontological, which means the very being of something. And again, I won't get into those theological and philosophical concepts, but it is important to just know that he's looking for something. He's seeking after God. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and he's trying to figure it out in the right way. And I love that he jumps to baptism because, you know, it over and over again in the Gospels, in the New Testament, it's believe and be baptized, believe and be baptized, Jesus, believe and be baptized. Like, that is over and over and over again. I was even reading in Acts 19, there was baptism. There's just baptism all over. And I love that he's like, I don't want to just be sprinkled. He doesn't say sprinkled, but that's what some of those denominations do. He's like, I want to be just dunked, River Jordan, like dunked under the water, or the River Thames, which is in England, which is, I mean, it's just joyful. It's just glorious. I love that he is seeking after God, and I love that at the end he just calls out the name of Jesus Christ. Now, I don't know where he is, and after this whole Kanye thing, where Kanye believes he's God now, he's gone off the cliff. You know, we have to be careful with celebrities, but what I want to do is hope and pray for Russell Brand in thinking that it seems like, is really seeking. He has a lot of different things that he has said and believed in the past, so only time will tell, but again, I'm going to hope and pray that he is going to follow after Jesus, just like he says, and find a community of believers to plug in with and connect with and grow with in the faith, because I think that's the best way to do it. And my point in sharing this is not that there's anything special necessarily about Russell Brand. I mean, he's a celebrity and a comedian and podcaster and whatever, and millions of people know him or listen to him or whatever. And that's nice. But my point is to say that no one is too far from Christ, and the person that you've been praying for however long, it's possible that you're going to play a role in their conversion. Jesus in Matthew 28, I mean, it's so clear to say that our job, regardless of what church you are in, is to make disciples. It is to tell people the gospel and disciple them and show them how to obey the commandments. Like, that's what our role is to do. And I hope that you will continue to do that too. And then finally, I'll just end with this Bible verse because, man, I just really like this. This is, let's see, I think I can put this up here for you. Let's do it this way. I'll just press this one. This is just a great Bible verse. As he was speaking, this is the one that came to my head, and this is Jesus saying in Matthew 7, ask and it will be given to you, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be opened. For everyone who asks receives, he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks the door will be opened. I love that, and we all could use a little bit of that as we follow after Jesus. I hope that you will do that. And I hope that you will seek him with your heart and soul and mind and strength. For Church Public, I'm Matt Odegaard, and as always, I hope that you will keep the faith. Well, thank you so much for stopping by again. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit a 5-star review if you want to, share this with a friend, and we hope to see you next time. God bless and keep the faith.